Tiamat and Marduk. Before the stars blinked into being, before the sun carved its arc across the void, there was only the abyss, an endless expanse of roiling ink-black waters. In this primordial chaos, two deities emerged from the formless depths. Tiamat, the mother of all, her serpentine body a shimmering tapestry of scales that spanned the horizon, and Marduk, the luminous son of the younger gods, his form radiant with the promise of order. They were opposites, Marduk a beacon of structure, Tiamat the embodiment of wild, untamed power, yet their fates were intertwined in the violent birth of the cosmos. Tiamat stirred first, her massive coils churning the waters into frothy whirlpools. Her eyes glowed like twin moons, and her voice was a guttural rumble that birthed echoes in the void. From her womb sprang a legion of monstrous progeny, dragons with wings that blotted out the faint glimmers of light, serpents with venom-dripping fangs, and chimeras of claw and horn that defied form. She crowned her consort, Kingu, as their general, draping him in dark armor forged from her own shed scales. Together they ruled a realm of ceaseless tumult, where creation and destruction danced in a frenzied, unbroken cycle. But the younger gods, born of the mingling waters of Tiamat's mate Apsu before his demise, grew restless under her chaotic dominion. Their whispers of discontent reached Marduk, a god of unparalleled valor, whose presence alone quelled the trembling of the void. His hair flowed like molten gold, and his hands gripped a bow carved from the spine of a fallen star. The gods gathered in a shimmering council, their voices a chorus of desperation, and bestowed upon him their might, the howling winds of Ea, the searing flames of Enlil, and the thunderous roar of Anu. Armed with a net spun from the silver threads of fate and a quiver of arrows tipped with celestial fire, Marduk accepted their plea to challenge Tiamat and her brood. The clash was a cosmic upheaval that tore at the fabric of existence. Tiamat rose from the depths, her scales gleaming with the iridescence of oil on water, her tail whipping up tempests that swallowed light itself. She unleashed her 11 champions, each a nightmare given flesh, led by Kingu, who clutched the stolen tablets of destiny, their runes glowing with usurped authority. Marduk met her gaze unflinchingly, his voice a clarion call that pierced the cacophony. The lesser gods retreated to the edges of the abyss, their breaths held as the fate of creation hung in the balance. The battle unfolded with apocalyptic fury. Tiamat's jaws gaped, a maw lined with teeth like jagged obsidian spires, aiming to engulf Marduk whole. He cast his net, its threads tightening around her thrashing form, binding her momentarily. Her children surged forward, the scorpion-tailed Mushusu, the hydra-headed Rabu, and others, their roars a symphony of malice. Marduk loosed his arrows, each one streaking like a comet to pierce their hides, their blood spattering the void in arcs of crimson and venom. Kingu charged, brandishing a spear of shadow, but Marduk summoned a gale that shattered his weapon and a bolt of thunder that sundered his armor. With a swift strike, Marduk wrested the tablets of destiny from Kingu's grasp, their power surging through him as he claimed his rightful dominion. Facing Tiamat once more, Marduk unleashed his full arsenal. He called forth the winds, 4 tempests that howled as they tore into her scales, forcing them into her throat until her bellows became choked gasps. Her eyes flared with defiance, but Marduk drove an arrow deep into her heart, splitting her colossal form asunder. From her upper half, he sculpted the vault of the heavens, pinning it with stars plucked from his quiver. Her lower half he flattened into the earth, her blood pooling into rivers, her bones rising as mountains. Her salty tears became the seas, forever restless with her spirit. In the stillness that followed, Marduk ascended as king, his throne set in Babylon, a city of golden ziggurats built atop the remnants of chaos. He inscribed the tablets of destiny with laws to govern the cosmos, banishing Tiamat's surviving offspring to the shadowed fringes of creation. Yet her presence lingered. The ocean surged with her ancient wrath, and the storms carried her mournful cries. Marduk, ever watchful, knew order was a fragile gift won through blood and thunder. The saga of their struggle echoed through time, chanted by priests beneath torchlit skies, a testament to the eternal war between chaos and cosmos, Tiamat and Marduk. Cain and Abel. In the dawn of the world, when the earth still hummed with the echoes of creation, there lived two brothers, Cain and Abel. They were the sons of Adam and Eve, born into a land of raw beauty and untamed possibility. The sun rose each day over fields of golden grass, and the rivers ran clear, carrying whispers of a time before sorrow. Cain, the elder, was a man of the soil. His hands were rough, stained with the dark earth he tilled. He coaxed life from the ground, wheat, barley, and roots, his sweat mingling with the dirt as he worked beneath the unrelenting sun. Abel, the younger, was a shepherd. He roamed the hills with his flock, his voice soft as he called to his sheep, guiding them to green pastures. The brothers were different as night and day, yet bound by blood and the shared weight of being the first sons of humanity. Their parents had taught them of the one who made the world, a presence unseen but ever watchful. To honor this creator, Cain and Abel brought offerings from their labors. Abel chose the finest of his flock, a lamb, plump and unblemished. He slaughtered it with care, laying its fat upon a stone altar, the smoke rising thick and sweet into the sky. Cain, meanwhile, gathered his harvest, bundles of grain ripened by his toil, and piled them high, a testament to his struggle against the stubborn earth. When the time came, the Creator looked upon their gifts. A gentle wind carried Abel's offering skyward, the smoke curling like a prayer accepted. But Cain's heap of grain lay untouched, the air above it still and heavy. No sign came, no whisper of approval. Cain's chest tightened as he watched his brother's offering rise, while his own sat ignored. Why Abel? He thought. Why not me? The question festered. Each day, as Cain drove his plough through the dirt, the silence of the Creator gnawed at him. Abel, oblivious, tended his sheep with the same quiet joy, his face lit by an ease Cain could not fathom. Jealousy took root in Cain's heart, a dark vine twisting through his thoughts. He began to see Abel not as a brother, but as a rival, a thief of favor he could not reclaim. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the hills red, Cain called to Abel. "Come with me to the field," he said, his voice steady, but his eyes shadowed. Abel, trusting as the lambs he led, followed without question. They walked in silence, the crunch of their steps, the only sound until they reached a clearing far from their father's house. There, beneath the wide, uncaring sky, Cain turned on his brother. Words spilled out, bitter, jagged things about worth and fairness and the sting of being unseen. Abel listened, his brow furrowed, but before he could answer, Cain's rage erupted. He seized a stone, its weight cold in his hand, and struck Abel down. The first blood spilled onto the earth, soaking into the soil Cain had once tilled. Abel lay still, his eyes open to the fading light, a shepherd silenced forever. For a moment Cain stood frozen, the stone slipping from his fingers. Then panic clawed at him. He dragged Abel's body to a shallow hollow and covered it with dirt, his hands trembling as he buried his sin. But the earth would not forget. When the Creator's voice came, it was not soft like the wind, but sharp as a blade. "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain's throat tightened. "I don't know," he lied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The ground itself answered. A low groan rose from the soil, Abel's blood crying out in a voice that could not be ignored. The Creator spoke again. "What have you done? Your brother's blood calls to me from the earth. Now you are cursed from the ground that drank your brother's life. It will no longer yield to you. You will wander, a fugitive forever." Cain fell to his knees, the weight of his deed crushing him. "My punishment is too great to bear," he whispered. "Anyone who finds me will kill me." So the Creator marked him, not with death, but with a sign, a warning to all that Cain was not theirs to judge. And with that he was cast out. He fled eastward into a land called Nod, where the shadows stretched long and the earth stayed silent beneath his feet. He built a life there, a city of his own, but the echo of Abel's blood followed him always. Back in the fields, Adam and Eve mourned their lost son, their family fractured by the first murder. The world had changed. Innocence traded for guilt, brotherhood for betrayal. And the earth, once a garden, now held the memory of blood, a stain that would whisper through the ages. The Battle Gilgamesh and Enkidu. In the shadowed heart of ancient Uruk, where the Euphrates whispered secrets to the wind, a storm brewed between two titans, Gilgamesh, the king clad in divine arrogance, and Enkidu, the wild man forged by the gods' own hands. Their clash was no mere brawl, it was a collision of fates, a tempest of rage and pride that would scar the earth itself. Gilgamesh ruled with an iron grip, his blood two-thirds divine, his heart a furnace of ambition. The people of Uruk groaned under his tyranny, their prayers rising like smoke to the heavens. The gods, weary of his excess, shaped Enkidu from clay and wilderness, a beastly mirror to the king's hubris. Enkidu roamed the steppe, his hair matted and his eyes like embered coals, a friend to wolves, but a stranger to humans. Yet destiny, that cruel weaver, drew him to Uruk's gates. It began with a scream, a bride torn from her groom by Gilgamesh's insatiable lust, his royal decree, a blade through tradition. Enkidu, newly tamed by the touch of Shamhat, heard the cry ripple through the city. His soul, raw and untempered, burned with a justice the wild had taught him. Strength must protect, not prey. He strode into Uruk, his shadow stretching long and dark across the sun-baked streets. They met at the temple of Anu, where incense curled like the breath of dying men. Gilgamesh stood atop the ziggurat steps, his golden armor glinting with the promise of invincibility. Enkidu, bare save for a lion's pelt, gripped a staff hewn from an ancient cedar. No words passed between them, only the guttural roar of challenge, the air thick with the scent of blood yet unspilled. The first blow shattered stone. Gilgamesh's fist, heavy with divine wrath, met Enkidu's chest, sending him crashing through a market stall. Dates and clay shattered underfoot as Enkidu rose, his ribs creaking, his snarl a beast's defiance. He lunged, staff swinging like a thunderbolt, cracking against Gilgamesh's helm. The king staggered, blood trickling from his brow, a mortal stain on a god's son. The city trembled as they fought. Walls crumbled under errant blows, and the people fled, their cries drowned by the grinding of earth and bone. Gilgamesh drew a blade, its edge singing of death, and slashed at Enkidu's flank. Crimson sprayed, painting the dust, but Enkidu seized the king's arm, snapping it back with a sickening crunch. Gilgamesh howled, his pride bleeding as freely as his wounds. Hours bled into dusk, the sky bruising purple above them. Enkidu's strength waned, his wild heart faltering under the weight of divine fury. Gilgamesh, limping, his armor dented and dull, drove a spear through Enkidu's thigh. The wild man fell, knees cracking against the stone, yet his eyes never dimmed. He grabbed Gilgamesh by the throat, fingers like roots digging into flesh, and for a moment the king's breath stopped. his immortality teetering on the edge of a mortal's rage. But the gods had woven their thread too tight. Enkidu's grip slackened, his body spent, and Gilgamesh, gasping, drove his fist into Enkidu's skull. The crack echoed like a felled tree, and Enkidu slumped, lifeless, into the dust. Silence fell, broken only by the king's ragged breaths and the distant wail of a city in ruin. Gilgamesh stood over the corpse, his triumph hollow. The wild man's blood stained his hands, a dark mirror to his own soul. He had won, yet the victory tasted of ash. Enkidu's death was no end, but a beginning, a shadow that would stalk Gilgamesh to the edge of the world, whispering of mortality, of loss, of a bond forged in fury and broken in blood. Uruk lay quiet that night, but the earth remembered, and the Euphrates carried their tale downstream, a dark hymn to the clash of gods and men.